Hi there, and welcome to COM 207. My name is Aaron Hess. I am your professor of record for this online class. And over the course of this video, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about what COM 207 is all about, get you sort of acclimated to what the class is going to look like, and just get comfortable with the syllabus and some of the other assignments and course policies and all of that good stuff. And so we're going to go through all of that. I recommend that you have a copy of the syllabus handy, either in electronic form or in paper form, whatever you'd like to do. And so as I go through the course syllabus, you'll see there's a lot of information about the assignments and such, and so having that handy so you can reference it during this video is probably going to be helpful. So, first and foremost, who am I? My name is Aaron Hess. I am an associate professor in the College of Integrative Sciences and Arts here at Arizona State University. Been here for this is my 8th year for this particular assignment and my teaching assignment, and I'm excited to teach this class again. I have taught this class online before, and so I've done this in a different version. I will admit, though, that this particular version of the class is a little different because the last time I taught it, we were using Blackboard and we've transitioned to Canvas. And so I've restructured the class to fit into the Canvas model a little bit differently and just to kind of update some of the features of it. And so the class is going to be a relatively fresh take on the overall COM 207 format. So a couple things you should know about me. My office is in the Arizona Center, and I will be here in that office during the course of the year if you are in, or the semester. If you are in the Phoenix area, you're welcome to visit me on the downtown campus if you need to talk about something. Otherwise, you'll be able to get in contact with me via email, and we can set up some chat sessions or Skype or Zoom or something along those lines if you'd like to talk more in person. Like I said before, email is the best, and so if you can get a hold of me via email, that will be the easiest way to have an engaged discussion about whatever the course content is. Just so you know a little bit about who I am as a scholar, I got my PhD actually here at Arizona State over on the Tempe campus many moons ago, and traveled a bit around the country and worked at a couple different institutions and ended up back here at the downtown campus. And I'm excited to be here. As I said before, I am an associate professor on the campus and looking forward to teaching this class. My research program looks at all things pertaining to digital rhetoric and participatory community advocacy. And what that means is that on the one hand, I study all things digital, and so I'm really interested in digital technology. I study everything from social media to gaming to search engines, all kinds of things. And then on the other hand, I also study things pertaining to community advocacies. And so I want to know how it is that local community groups engage in advocacy on behalf of some sort of cause or issue. And those two things intersect when I talk about things about the ways that community groups engage social media platforms or whatnot to promote their advocacy. And so you can kind of see how some of that is put together. Now, I've done a lot of research on a lot of different topics, and you'll probably hear some of that over the course of the semester. I like to draw in some of those topics as we discuss things. I think that's helpful to kind of make sense of it all. But for now, we're going to stick our conversation, focus our conversation rather on pretty much what the course content is all about, and you'll hear more about my stuff later on. So up front, some things that you'll need for the course. Of course, you'll need the Griffin text, and it looks kind of like this. There's a picture of it there on the screen. Hopefully you've picked this up already, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. And so you'll also have to have access to Canvas. I'm not sure how you would have watched this video without access to Canvas, but that's something you're going to have. And you should also have the ability to access the library website. One thing I highly encourage you to do and to recognize is that in online classes, you're going to have to be online and use the internet to access the course. To do that, you might want to have something more than just your phone. And I know that your phone can do a lot of things, and Canvas can work right through your phone, that sort of good stuff, but there will be times when the use of a full-blown computer might be better suited for what's going on in this class. A lot of the videos and such that I put together can be watched from your phone, so that's not really a problem, but I have had a student one time, the last time I taught this class online, tried to take the entire course without a computer and did not do well. And so, just a fair warning, you probably want to have access to a laptop of some sort, or at least library computers, because those can probably get the job done as well. So make sure that you have those sorts of access points, and I think that you'll be successful. Now, the class itself has a lot of stuff, and if you look at the syllabus, you'll see that there's a lot of course policies, all kinds of stuff, and this is that section of the first day of class where I've got to go through them at least very quickly, just to give you a sense as to what the course is all about. Now, you'll see in the course description that the class introduces you, the student, to the theories and paradigms of communication research. And so we're going to be spending a lot of time looking at what those paradigms are and then talking about particular theories that sort of fit inside of them. If you're like, what's a paradigm? What's a theory? Don't worry, we'll get there. And so you should have learned a little bit about this in COM 100, but we're going to do a much deeper dive into communication theory and how it's built, as well as the sort of different paradigms across the communication discipline. And so we'll spend a lot of time doing that over the course, especially in the beginning of the semester, and then a lot of time talking about particular theories in communication as we continue. The course objectives, I'm asking you to understand those basic paradigms of communication research. I'm asking you to recognize a broad array of theories. I'm asking you to locate and be able to read and critically analyze a lot of the literature that's out there. And that's probably one of the hardest things about this class. As you've moved from COM 100 into COM 207, one of the things that you probably remember from COM 100, because I teach that class too, is that it's a lot of memorization of different ideas, and it's kind of surface level stuff. COM 207 is going to be that deeper dive. And what that means is that you're going to be responsible for knowing things like particular authors, particular theories, how they're put together, and again, a deeper dive into the literature of the communication discipline. And so you're expected to go out and read scholarly journals and try to reflect on how those are pertinent into our daily lives and review communication literature to try to get a sense as to how it's put together. And that's one of the big changes from COM 100 to 207. And so hopefully you can keep that in mind as you continue. Now, other things that I expect you to do is to look at the relationship between the ideas that are found in communication theory and just the everydayness of our existence. Communication theory is best understood as practical, and I really want to emphasize that in this class as well. And so I'll spend a lot of time doing that over the course of the semester, trying to find ways to look at how you see these theories operating in your daily life. The last thing I'm going to ask you to do that's a part of the course objectives, and if you see me looking over here, I'm always looking at the syllabus, is that I'm going to be asking you to really be able to synthesize communication literature and research. And what that means is that you're able to spend some time thinking about what is the status of knowledge about a particular topic or communication problem. How can you pull in sources that are about that topic and really talk about them in a concrete way to give us a sense of this is what we know about this particular idea or this topic or this problem. And that's one of the major assignments of the course, which we'll get to in just a moment. You'll see my teaching philosophy is briefly outlined there in the syllabus. The short version is that I think that education and the university world is remarkably empowering, and I love the sort of interactions that we can have in a classroom. Now, of course, this is an online class, and so the interactions are a little bit different. But still, one of the things I'm going to be looking for are the ways that you can interact with your peers to think through some of these communication theories and how they operate, again, in your daily life. And one of the assignments gets at that as well. And you can read a little bit more about my teaching philosophy there on the syllabus. Now, there's a whole bunch of policies that are listed. I'm going to try to go through them as quickly as possible because I know how it's just like, oh, policy this and policy that. These, most of the time, don't really kick in for most students, but every once in a while, there's a particular policy that might be important to you. And so hopefully you can take a minute just to listen in. The first that's up there is about academic integrity, and this has to do with plagiarism and cheating. Now, in an online course, there are lots of resources out there and lots of ways to look at the types of texts that are available and lots of ways to access lots of information. But one of the things I'm going to be looking for is to make sure that you're creating your own work on your own and with your own effort. And my academic integrity policy basically speaks to that I dedicate the hard work of students, and when students put in that time and effort, they should be rewarded for it. Simultaneously, for those students that try to take shortcuts and try to plagiarize, they should be punished for it. And there are disciplinary actions that are outlined in the Student Code of Conduct, and you should be familiar with those as a student. I've got a link to them inside of the syllabus. For my class, the short version is this. If I catch you plagiarizing or cheating on an assignment, especially with plagiarism because that's more pertinent for this particular course, but it's an automatic 0 for that assignment, and then I withhold the right to give you that XE, the dark mark on your transcript that indicates that you have plagiarized. And that basically means that when that happens, that there's a system in place inside the university that sort of triggers that a recognition of this particular this dark mark, this plagiarism, this XE. And so I reserve the right to do that. But in the class, what I'll ask you to do is to rewrite the assignment, whatever it is, and then turn it in again, and then we'll start a negotiation process about what that means about the remainder of the course. There have been a few instances in my career where I have caught students cheating, and one student, a student athlete from many years ago, excuse me, I had to remove from the class and had that dark mark of the XC, but it's relatively rare. To be honest, the class is structured in a way to assist you in building toward that final project, and there shouldn't be a reason to have to plagiarize a lot of this because it's really built with your needs and your work ethic in mind. And so if you can follow the structure of the course, hopefully you won't need to engage in those types of behaviors. But do familiarize yourself with the syllabus and the code of conduct to make sure that you understand what the consequences would be. A couple other ideas about the learning environments in Title IX and sort of accommodations that are out there. The learning environment here is all online. It's here on Canvas. And during those interactions where we're talking to each other, I just want to remind you of just sort of the basic civility and decorum, that I would like people to engage in free expression about their ideas, whatever those are, and that we're respectful of those moments when people are sharing life stories and things. And so that's a part of what I'm going to be looking for. Now, we're talking about communication theory, and so while those do have a place in everyday existence and things, I don't know how much it's going to get into the deep, dark secrets of your family history or something. And so I don't know the need to disclose sorts of things, nor do I see the need for outright political everythings. Now, there may be a moment where you want to talk about, especially under critical theories, some of the ways that politics can intersect with this class, or we could talk about rhetoric and things. But and you're certainly welcome to share the opinions that you have and ideas that you have about those things, and just be mindful of the opinions of others as we continue. And you'll see some more details about that in the syllabus. Title IX is a federal law that is listed here up on the Prezi that's up there, and it's in the syllabus. It's a federal law that talks about the exclusion of people based upon sex. And there are a couple of things that are in part of that policy that are important. One is that any discussion of sexual violence is prohibited in the classroom, and any instances of students talking about how they were victims of sexual violence, I'm required to report if that happens. And so there are resources that are available at the ASU website, and again, there's a link there in the syllabus. Accommodations. There are a couple of instances where I would be happy to accommodate students, although you'll see the structure of this class has some flexibility, so hopefully you wouldn't need it. But the accommodations would be for things like religious practices or university-sanctioned activities. If you'd like to ask for an accommodation for one or more of those things, just let me know and we can talk through that, so long as we can do that earlier on in the semester. Which gets to things like makeups. On the whole, makeups don't exist. As I said, there's some structure built into the class that gives you some flexibility. And so you'll see that on the schedule where there's a whole bunch of things that you'll be able to do, and each unit has some flexibility where you can do particular things at different times. There are some, concrete due dates that you'll have to follow. And if you can follow those, basically, I think you'll be able to be okay. But, the makeup sort of situation is not going to exist, especially in an online environment where there isn't a physical presence or a physical place for you to be. Most of the deadlines are as happy as I can make them, as forgiving and generous as I can make them. And so, but again, it's a big class with a lot of moving parts, and so just keep on track of that schedule so you don't have to have a makeups discussion. Now, my email policy. I am very good at emailing back to students. I've never had a complaint about that, and so if anything, students are sometimes surprised I'm able to email back as quickly as I can, so I should be on top of that over the course of the semester. If, for whatever reason, I have not emailed you back within, say, 48 hours, although that'd be a surprise, just email me again. I probably just flat out missed it. And so I do get a lot of emails in the day, and so just make sure that you send out another message because I just flat out missed it. And so that's my policy. The only exception to that is that weekends sometimes can be a little longer just because spending time with my family. I have 2 boys, and we're hanging out doing the thing, and so that sort of stuff. Other sorts of accommodations regarding disability resources. This is another accommodation that I'm more than happy to make. Please get in contact with the DRC. There's a link inside the syllabus for you. And the DRC is there to help me understand whatever accommodations I can make on your behalf. So the Disability Resource Center basically is there to help you learn of any sorts of disabilities you might have, or learn of ways in which these accommodations can help you as an individual. Now, I'm not able to diagnose or make sense of some of those ideas. That's not my degree, right? I'm not a professional in that regard. But I can make changes to my syllabus and teaching style if it helps you. And so work with them to work with me. The last thing you want to do is wait till the end of the semester to try to make some sort of accommodation happen. When I was teaching at California State University, Chico, many years ago, it's where I got my master's degree, and I taught there for a few years. I had a student come to me in a writing intensive course, and she came to me at the very end of the class and said, you know, I've been really struggling all semester long. I have dyslexia, and all of this reading and writing is really difficult for me, and I had no idea. And so it wasn't until the very end of the course that she came to me, and I was sad for her. And I said, you know, look, you've got to come and tell me these things at the beginning because I can help you and get some other sorts of tools and resources for you. And you know, sadly, she was not successful in the class because of that. And so this is the sort of thing. If you have any sort of a disability that you want to talk about, meet with the DRC and let them work with me to figure out what is necessary and what the next steps would be. Okay, so I have a grievance policy and a late assignment policy here. First, the grievance policy. You know, I get a lot of assignments. I'm teaching multiple classes, and as a consequence, you know, I have a lot of grading, and this class has a lot of assignments, and so I want to make sure that my grading is done as streamlined and as fairly and ethically as possible. So there are times where I may make mistakes, and if you believe that I've done that, then you can let me know. The policy basically works like this. If you have a warranted disagreement, an argument against my particular grading on an assignment, by all means, please bring that up with me. The first thing I ask is that you wait for about 24 hours, just in case you're upset about that. That gives you time to stop and think through the sorts of claims you want to make about that assignment. And then contact me within 7 days. And so that 24/7 policy is there to allow you to cool off just in case you're upset about it, and then talk to me within 7 days so we don't have that flood of, I turned in my first assignment 8 weeks ago, and now I'd like to get points back because suddenly I'm struggling in the class. No, if you have a warranted disagreement, you should be able to pinpoint that pretty early in the course. So bring that to my attention within 7 days, and I'll review the assignment again. Now, when I say a warranted disagreement, that means that there is a good reason as to why you believe you should deserve more credit. I'm pretty transparent about all my grading. There are rubrics for just about every assignment, and you can follow those rubrics to understand how I'm making my decisions about your grade. So my biggest advice for you is that that warranted disagreement should follow the rubric for the assignment. If you come to me and you say things like, I worked really hard on this, fantastic. Let's say you want to drive from Phoenix to Mexico and you decide you're going to head north. You can try really, really hard to do that, and you're just not going to get there anytime soon. And so the effort into that process, that effort of heading to Mexico, is going to be unsuccessful regardless of how hard you try. And so the same thing is true here. You could work really hard in the wrong direction on an assignment, and that doesn't mean that I've graded you unfairly. It means you just worked in the wrong direction. And so when you come to me with that warranted disagreement, that's what you want to do is take up that rubric and talk to me about how you believe you met, numbers 1, 2, and 3 or whatever it is on that rubric. You'll see on Canvas, I have lots of things built for you, lots of handouts, lots of explanations, because I'm trying to be as transparent as possible. And so follow those, and I think that you'll be successful. Students do talk to me about this grievance policy every in a while. It's something that does come up, but it's relatively rare. And so I think that's more a testament to the rubrics that I've got for you. And so if you look at those rubrics, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised as the ways I've outlined everything you need to know for the class. Late assignment policy: for every 24-hour period of time beyond the due date and time, a 10% point reduction off the top of the assignment is going to be taken off. So if you have, say, your one of the assignments, let's say if you have a 100-point assignment and you miss it by a day, then that's 10 points off the top. So you can only get 90 out of 100. And that would be true for all of your assignments. And so it means you can turn in things late, but there will be a penalty for that. Now, the last thing, my grading policy is listed up there so you understand what I consider to be an A through E. And then the last thing I have in there is a notice. And so the notice is this. It's a notice of material to be presented in class. And so as a scholar and teacher, I believe that media shapes our understanding of reality. And in many cases, theory can be realized by watching mediated events. As such, I will utilize a variety of television, film, music videos, and other media as instructional aids about communication, rhetoric, and persuasion. Some of the material we will watch and discuss in class may contain what is commonly known as an R or restricted rating. We may cover issues such as violence, sexuality, drug use, racism, sexism, pornography, profanity, and many more. This syllabus and your enrollment in the class signify that you're aware of the potentially offensive material that we will critically examine in class. Now, COM 207 is not porn class. That's not what we're doing here. But there will be things that we look at over the course of the semester that could be considered somewhat offensive or to certain individuals. Now, rather than me trying to figure out what is offensive to all individuals and what is considered to be, pornographic or profane, I give you this warning to know that I'm putting things out there that I think are good for discussion. It doesn't mean that I'm purposely trying to offend individuals about particular things. It's just to give you a fair warning that if we watch, a clip of How I Met Your Mother or something like that, that we're doing that because it shows a particular idea that I think is worthwhile for us to discuss. And so I do that, again, on purpose because I think it's useful for our overall discussion. And so keep that in mind. All right, that's it. No more policies. We're done with policies. So many policies. Now, let's talk about other things. The textbook. This is the textbook for the class. There are other editions of it that are out there that are just different color, like they just trade out the color every year. That's how fancy the editions are. The different editions do have some differences in terms of examples and things. The core understandings of the theories tend to be the same. If you picked up a previous edition of this book and you're trying to use that, it might work. But to be honest, the last time I taught this class, the edition was blue, I think. It was the 8th edition. So I have not taught this class in a few years, which means that I am teaching on a new edition twice over. So it was the 8th edition. This is the 10th edition. The structure of the book has remained the same, though. And so one of the things that you should note about the structure is that it has, if you look in the table of contents, you'll see that there's an upfront discussion about some of the theories, and then as you continue on, you'll see that there's a chapter basically dedicated to every single one of the theories. Now, there are tons of theories in here. It has 37 chapters total, and about 80% of them are theories. And so you're looking at about 28 or more different theories. We can't cover them all, and so we won't cover them all, but we're going to cover a whole bunch of them in here. The list is there in the syllabus, and you can look at the different chapters. The structural thing that makes that unique, however, is that as much as we start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, after that, we basically jump around in the book. And that's because the chapters are each dedicated to a theory, so they kind of stand alone. As we jump around, it's okay that we go from chapter 6 to 33, then back to 17 or whatever. And so you'll see that in the structure of the syllabus and again on the schedule. And so keep that in mind that it's a non-linear textbook to a certain degree. So the assignments. There are a collection of assignments in this class, and you'll see it actually ends up being kind of a lot of little moving parts. And I know that can be frustrating, but the whole point of this class is to get you to understand how communication literature is built, how to read scholarly essays, and how to synthesize them. And so you basically have a bunch of little things that lead up into the big thing. And the little things are practice ways of understanding how literature is put together and reflections upon how theory operates. And then you get into literature review project, which is the big beast of the class. So if you go on the syllabus under assignments, you'll see a couple things. First, there are the section quizzes. There are 4 main sections of this class. There's an introductory section, then we have social scientific theories, interpretive theories, and then I lump together rhetorical and critical theories at the very bottom because they stand a little different from social scientific and interpretive. And so those 4 sections comprise the entirety of the course. Each section will have its own quiz that I'm asking you to take. And so you'll see that, again, at the end of every single one of those sections. So that's the first bit that you have there, which is the section quizzes. Those quizzes will look like multiple choice, true, false, short answer, those sorts of things. And so a variety of forms in which they tend to stick to sort of a multiple choice format. They'll be timed, but obviously you're in an online class, and so you have the textbook and other materials that are open for you, and so they all become open book. And so I think those will be rather successful as a consequence. Next, we have the practice article coding and discussion board. This is where we're going to have a joint collaborative discussion board 3 times over the course of the semester. And this is, again, just to try to talk through collectively as a group how a particular article is built. So I'll ask you to read an article as a group, and then we'll come together on the discussion board, and I'll hopefully be able to guide you through a discussion about how we can find little bits of how it's put together. The whole purpose of this is to understand the coding process. And the coding process, like the article coding sheets and the article coding, is basically a means by which we read articles. And so it's a way of breaking down the parts. And that whole process is something that we practice 3 times over the course of the semester with 3 different articles. And then you complete on your own with your own articles that you find 4 times. And so this is a way, again, for you to get into the literature and learn how it's put together and how to read scholarly articles. Oftentimes scholarly articles are really, something that is maintained inside of the academy, inside of academia, but is something that's useful for how we understand how theory is built. And so we're going to spend some time talking about that. So the assignments will look similar, that there's the practice version of them and then your version of them, and we'll put all that together, and you'll have a total of those many instances where you're putting together these article coding sheets. And so we'll talk more about that. There are handouts and some other materials up on Canvas for you. Then we get to theory reflections. These are places where hopefully we'll be able to engage with each other about the different theories. These are not difficult. They're not meant to be. It's kind of an all or nothing kind of grade. Basically, what I'm asking you to do is 5 times over the course of the semester is to discuss a particular theory and how it relates to your everyday existence. And so in the very beginning, I'm asking you to reflect on, under social science theories, at least 2 there where you can think of like, hey, I remember I was on the light rail one time and uncertainty reduction theory just kind of popped into my brain, and here's how. Great, let's talk about that. And so there's a space on the discussion boards where I'm asking you to contribute to the discussion boards with a story about how this theory sort of came to life for you. And so I'm asking you to do that 5 times. Not difficult. It's just a way of engaging each other. The other half of that assignment, which is only worth 20 points, that I'm asking you to do 4 times, is to discuss and reply, really, to your classmates and talk about, oh, hey, yeah, that happened to me one time. And that reply, that response, is a way of either elaborating on the theory, offering your own details of like a similar experience, or to talk about how that might also relate to another theory that we've discussed. And so it's just a way of encouraging some interactions. That is the only real requirement in terms of the discussion boards. And I'm going to be looking to see that you've done that 5 times. And there'll be a structure for that on how you label, like, this is my submission for it. And we'll get to that in just a little while. And so you'll see that up on Canvas as a part of the structure. But those theory reflections and responses really are not designed to be punitive. They're designed to be relatively easy. Just so long as you get in there, you tell that story, we move on. Very easy. It's kind of an all or nothing again. You do the requirements, and they're all outlined here on the syllabus. What I'm asking you to do is to reflect in about 200 words. The responses really aren't counted that way. It's just if you offer a quality response, that will be sufficient. Do that a handful of times over the course of the semester, and that's an easy 70 points for the class. And so that's the design there. Now, the big project, 30% of your grade is the literature review project. This is broken down into 2 primary components, one tiny one and the other is the big one. The tiny one is the preliminary proposal. This is 10 points where you basically say, I'd like to study this thing. And you have 2 approaches that you can follow. On the one hand, you can take one theory, as in one of the theories from this book if you'd like, and take that theory and outline the status of knowledge in it. And again, there's going to be a whole bunch of other videos about this. If you don't want to talk about just that one theory, you can take a communication problem, like something that might happen in the workplace, and use theory to describe, maybe multiple theories, to describe how that communication problem could be discussed and maybe the conflict can be solved or at least understood better or more and differently. And so those 2 approaches can guide the overall project. On the one hand, if you choose the theory, you can find lots of articles that just really sort of push on one particular theory and really try to expand that theory. That's one great way of doing it. On the communication problem, that might offer you some flexibility in terms of how you talk about it. It might give you the room to write about multiple theories as well, and maybe even compare and contrast how those theories would operate within the context of this problem. And so whatever it is you want to choose is really up to you. And I'll have a whole bunch of other videos and other sorts of documents for you on how we put together this literature review project. The details of the overall paper and the sort of scope of it, it ends up being 1,500 to 2,000 words, which is a larger paper, and you should have all the relevant resources. I'll be asking you to offer a particular number of references. I think 8 is on the syllabus, and all kinds of other things. So you'll have other documents that are up on Canvas that will help you understand how to put that together. And so that's the big project for the overall class. And again, there'll be a lot more documentation about that up on Canvas. So all said, this is what the class looks like. You've got the 4 quizzes, 3 practice codings, 4 coding sheets, the proposal and final paper, and then just the sort of participatory stuff, which is the theory, reflections, and responses. That all adds up to, hopefully, 500 points. Grading scale is there on the right, looking at what constitutes all the different types of grades in the class. Now the schedule. It is always subject to change, but this is the basic format that I've put together. It exists in a week-by-week schedule, but it is in larger sort of units, larger chunks for the class. And so week 1, where we're at now, is introductions. I'm talking just about what theory is, and we'll get into that as you move on in the course. And then you'll see that for every single week, I have a particular topic that we'll be discussing, like the paradigms. There will be videos that are clearly marked or other sorts of presentational materials that are up on Canvas, all clearly marked, and you'll have the associated readings that go along with it. And so just follow along. Everything is organized under Canvas under modules. And so you go to module, you'll see there's Unit 1, Communication Paradigms and Research Fundamentals. And all the different videos will be up and ready for you to start watching. And so you can just go through and watch whatever it is you'd like. I can say that what it's going to look like is each of those videos is going to be roughly, 15 to 20 minutes. They're not overwhelming. Try not to make them too long. In fact, this one's probably going to be one of the longer ones because it's just lots to talk about. But the discussions are there for you to make sense of some of the different topics. And after you go through them, hopefully you get a better sense of things. And they should pair nicely with the text. And so you'll see that up on Canvas. As we go down a little bit, you'll see that we don't have as many readings toward the beginning of that first unit. We'll have a how to read scholarly journals discussion, talking about the publishing process and how to use the library website. That practice coding will be due at that same time. That's where that discussion board will open up, and you'll read the Tracy, Myers, and Scott piece, which is listed at the bottom of the syllabus under readings. On the 5th week, we'll have a topic proposal discussion. We're just going to open up a discussion board for anyone who wants to talk through different topics and how those might be successful or not. This is something that I would do in a face-to-face class, and I'll offer the same sort of thing. And then you'll have your section quiz to finish off Unit 1. In Unit 2, and the structure here follows for Unit 2, 3, and 4, I'll have a list of theories. Now, it'll be in that same order: expectancy, violation, uncertainty reduction, elaboration, likelihood, and so forth. But you don't have to follow that order if you didn't want to. They're basically modular, and so you could go and jump around on them a little bit, and they can kind of be cut and pasted in lots of different ways. You do have some due dates, and so if you go across and you see that on week 6, you've got the proposal is due at the end of week 6. All of the due dates are at the end of the week. So if on week 6, the proposal would be due on September 29th, so it's the very end. The only exception to this is at the very end of the class, where things are due right at the last day. And so week 6, proposal is due. You've got week 7, that's the practice coding number 2, is due at the end of that week. Week 8, and so forth. And so you'll see that those due dates, they're all listed on Canvas. Everything should be ready for you to see and should be pretty clear. Again, you can read any of these theories in any order that you want and the chapters that correspond with them. The only thing you'd want to read ahead of time for practice coding number 2 is the Mormon and Floyd piece, which is listed up on on Canvas. And so then you'll have a section quiz there at the end of Unit 2. Same thing's true here, Unit 3. There's our theory list. Chapters 5, 11, 19, and 6, and the Tracy reading, also listed up on the syllabus, and you'll have access to that through the library website. Then there's a section quiz there at the end. Practice coding would be associated with the Tracy reading, so make sure that you're coordinating those effectively. You'll see that the coding sheet, that is, if we go back one actually, the coding sheet number 1 is due there on week 8. That's the first article that you review. One of the things that I meant to mention earlier about those articles that you're reviewing is that those should be articles that you're reviewing for your literature review project. And so the topic proposal, right, the proposal that you build is for your overall topic. All the articles you choose, except for the practice ones, should build into that assignment. So you've already got a bunch of them done by the end of it. You get in there, you have your section quiz at the end of week 13. Week 14, you've got your coding sheet 3. Week 15, coding sheet 4, and then so forth with the final 3 reflections of the theories, which you could have been doing all along, and the section quiz and your final paper of the literature review due at the end of week 17 there. And so I think it's actually listed as being due on December 10th, and that's because of just the way that finals week structures, it gets a little funky. So the schedule here should be pretty easy to understand, but let me know if you have any questions about it. You will see that on a week-by-week basis, there's oftentimes a lot of stuff that's due. The reality of the course, though, is that most any of it can be done almost all at once. And so if you have your coding sheets, once you understand how the coding sheet process works, you can start to turn those in almost immediately. And if you're doing it successfully, you could do all of your coding sheets, by week. To be honest, you could, by doing it by week 6 or 7, you could do all of them. And so that's one of the things that you could do, is to work ahead to get a lot of that work done ahead of time. And so if you want tips and tricks on how to do that, I can help you that over the course of the semester. But that gets to the big idea here, and what is this class all about? Well, if you have any questions about any of the course policies, any of the activities that we're doing, by all means, let me know. You'll see that there is a discussion board on Canvas that allows you to ask questions about any of the things that I've talked about over the course of this video. You're also welcome to email me. That discussion board's kind of that open discussion on a day one class if we were meeting face-to-face, and so feel free to use it that way, because that's the way I think of it. Otherwise, you can send me an email, and I'll do my best to respond and kind of get things going. I'm excited to teach this class again. It's been a little while, but I'm excited to teach it, and I'm happy to have you along. Let me know if you have any questions.